Hi everyone, let's continue our learning of proportional relationships. Today we're going to be focusing on writing equations that describe proportional relationships. So our goal today, one, is to find the constant of proportionality in a table, which is what we did in the last video. And then the next we're going to start writing an equation in the form of y equals kx to represent the proportional relationship described by the table. How do we do this? Let's look at our notes. The constant of proportionality in a table can be found by looking at the y value when y equals 1. If you look over at your table in example, I've just circled where x is 1. So whatever number goes here in this y column is what's going to be our constant of proportionality. Okay, that's how you can always find it. So when we write our equation, every proportional equation can be written in the form y equals k, that's our constant of proportionality. COP is short for constant of proportionality. So k is this line right here that I circled in the table. Okay, this is always going to be k here in the y column. So y equals kx. Now, how do we do this? How do we write this equation? Well, first we have to find what is our k, what is our constant of proportionality. And like before, we ended up using y over x. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. In my table, I have two values. I have one value for x, which is 5, and one value for y, which is 2. Notice, though, that they've changed the variable in the labels. We're going to get to that at the end, but this left column is still going to be x, and this is still going to be y. So we're going to set it up the same way, y over x. So 2 over 5. And when we put that in the calculator, we get 0.4. Okay, that means that we're multiplying by 0.4. Now I can put that arrow for every x value that I have on my table shown. 1 times 0.4 is 0.4. We could also keep it as a fraction, 2 over 5, 2/5. Remember, if we don't have a number in the x column, we're going to go backwards. So instead of multiplying by 0.4, we're going to divide by 0.4. In our calculator, 20 divided by 0.4 is 50. And then lastly, what happens if we have a variable in that column on our table? What times k will give us an answer? So that we're still going to multiply by 0.4, but k can represent any number. I can make it worth 5, I can make it worth 2/3, I can make it worth -5. K can be any number. So what is the rule? No matter what number we choose, we can always find an answer. So we're going to put 0.4 and then just put the variable after it. 0.4k, 0.4 times k. When we write our equation, we're going to put our constant of proportionality, which is where we find in the middle of our table on all those arrows, that 0.4 is going to go where that k is. We're going to take this k out and put 0.4 instead. We're going to keep y and x where they are. But now going back to the top of this table, we don't have x or y, we have g and p. G is our x, p is our y. So I'm going to replace y with p, and I'm going to replace x with g. So this is our final answer. This is important when testing to make sure you're using the variables that are given in the problem, because if you put in y equals 0.4x as an answer, it's going to mark you wrong because the computer is looking for you to use the variables that were given. That's always a good thing to check just as a last step. So let's put this into practice. We're going to go back to the examples that we did in the last video, about serving rice to a certain number of people and spring rolls to a certain number of people. So when we go back to our example, a recipe says that 2 cups of dry rice will serve 6 people. Write an equation that shows the relationship in the table. We're going to use the equation y equals kx. First, we need to find the constant of proportionality. We're going to use y over x. Where do we have 2 values that could help us find the constant of proportionality? That's right, we have the 2 and the 6. 2 cups of rice feed 6 people. So all we have to do now is put y over x. That would be 6 over 2. Don't forget, the right column is always y. 6 over 2 simplifies to 3. So that means we're just multiplying by 3. 2 times 3 equals 6. Well, I can multiply that now by 1. What's 1 times 3? It's 3. Remember, when x equals 1, this is our constant of proportionality. Notice it's the same number that's in the middle of our table. If I multiply times 3 here, all of the rest of the table has values in the x column. So let's just do times 3 for all of them. 3 times 3 is 9. 12 times 3 is 36. 43 times 3 is 129. So what's x times 3? That's right, it's 3x. So how do we write our equation? Well, we're going to put y equals kx. Our k can either be found where x is 1, so that it could be the 3 here in that column when x is 1, or we can use the number that's on all of our arrows. Since they're all the same, that is our constant of proportionality. So our equation is y equals 3x. And you're done. All right, next example. I want you to pause this and I want you to try to solve this first. Okay, remember, we're going to use the equation y equals kx. If you need help, y over x can be used to find the constant of proportionality. It can be used to find k. Go ahead and pause the video and try to write the equation for this problem. So now that you've taken time to try to do this, we're going to use y over x, which is 3 over 6. I'm going to use the two values that are given in the table. This is the y, 3 over 6, which simplifies to 1/2. Okay, 1/2. We're going to multiply by 1/2. Remember, that's the same thing as saying half of whatever's in the x column. Half of 6 is 3. So I could do that with 1. What's half of 1? I could do that with all of them. Half of whatever value x is. Okay, now that we have all of our constant of proportionality the same, we can now just use math. So half of 1 is 1/2. We could also write 0.5. Either one is fine. They're both equivalent, so whatever you choose to use, whichever is easier for you, use it. Remember, when x is 1, the value in the y column is your constant of proportionality. Either one of these is your constant of proportionality. You can use either one. You're not going to be wrong. Jumping down to the next one, half of 10 is 5. Half of 16 is 8. Half of 25 is 12.5. So what's half of n? What if I pick any number? Can we find the answer? Of course. Here, we're just going to write that 1/2, our constant of proportionality, that number in the middle, and then we're going to just put the variable after it. So 1/2 n. Now, going back to our equation, y equals kx, I'm going to write the same exact thing here, but instead of k, I'm going to put this number that's in the middle of my table. I can either put 1/2 or 0.5. I'm going to use 1/2 since that matches what I put on my table. If you wrote y equals 0.5x, you are correct as well. They're the same thing. And you just did it. You just found the equation that represents this proportional relationship. Next, go back to your notes. Okay, you're going to jot down anything that you might need to help you remember how to do this without having to go back to this video. And then I want you to make your own proportional table and write an equation for it. You get to choose the constant of proportionality this time. Have a great day.